I assume that this is your very first time in Thailand, right?
Well, actually, I came years and years ago, but it's my first time as a government minister, and it's been an enormously exciting trip over the last 48 hours. And this conference is really the highlight because it showcases the importance of the relationship with Thailand and the UK, and that's something I just want to do more of.
Right, so did your experience here live up to your expectations?
Yes, more, exceeded my expectations. I mean,
Wow.
I think, well, firstly, I think Bangkok's an amazing city. Love coming to Thailand. It's just been a phenomenal few days. Everyone's been enormously friendly and welcoming. And I've really had the opportunity to meet your Prime Minister, who I think is a phenomenal individual, a really far-sighted visionary when it comes to ensuring the economy is a success. Many of his ministerial colleagues as well, who really want to just work more closely with the UK. So that's a hugely exciting thing for me as a government minister coming here. What I've been most excited about and enthused about, really, is also the reaction from Thai businesses who invest in Great Britain, Northern Ireland. And so we've got some of the big brands in the UK, like, I don't know, some Malmaison and Hotel du Vin, Selfridges, some of our big football teams, Formula One, whiskey brands. These are owned by Thai investors. So the opportunity to talk to them, encourage them to invest more, is something that I'm really seizing with both hands.
These are really big names to begin with.
Big names, exactly.
So you just met with the Prime Minister, the
did.
Commerce Minister,
Yes.
and many business leaders here in
Exactly.
Thailand. So what has been highest on the agenda during these talks?
So that's a good point. I mean, my role's been really split into two, one of which is to promote the UK as one of the premier, if not the premier, investment destination in the world, and also to showcase the government's determination to ensure that we retain that top spot. So it's an important sales role. Also making sure that I've got good relationships with these phenomenal companies and these big brands who are investing in the UK. The second half really is to help our companies investing in Thailand have a successful mission and build their businesses to the greatest possible degree. So that's working with the local authorities in terms of removing market barriers. So it could be in terms of, approvals for drugs for some of our companies, basically like GSK, who are investing heavily in R&D. It could be around financial services. So HSBC, Standard Chartered, Aberdeen, all operational here, all very important big businesses. How can we make sure that financial services regulation works for them on the ground in Thailand? And then importantly, how can we encourage more regulatory tie-up between our markets, the London Stock Exchange, the Bangkok Exchange, and so on, to encourage more capital flow? Because the investment opportunities between the two countries are highly complementary. You've got a phenomenal manufacturing base here, huge potential for concepts such as offshore solar. In the UK, we have the AI revolution, we've got deep tech, phenomenal science and technology developments and commercializations, combined with our sustainable energy revolution, which again, a lot of know-how from our offshore wind platform principles can be then brought back to Thailand to help you with your sustainable energy revolution here. So really complementary and huge opportunities across the board.
So it's not just business, but it's also technology and
is.
other industries as well. But is there anything that you want to focus more in terms of trade and investment relations between the UK and Thailand?
Yeah, well, I mean, you mentioned the sort of the broad waterfront. It's also education. I mean, how many Thais went to school or university in the UK? It's just phenomenal. I mean, nowhere else in the world could I go into a room and just discover so many people who went to my university or my school. Those cultural links are very important because actually investment's about trust. And so if you already have a high degree of affinity and understanding, it makes it much easier to do investment. And that's something I want to promote more. You talk about sort of sectors. Sustainable energy is really at the cornerstone of the future of dealing with the climate crisis. It's also a gigantic industry in the UK. It's enabled us to completely sort of have a rebirth of some of our regional capitals like Newcastle and Liverpool in terms of the offshore wind industry, in terms of advanced manufacturing. You know, if I go back 10 years, would I have been thinking that the UK would become an advanced manufacturing hub for autos and new energy technologies? Actually, I probably wouldn't have. But it's actually happened because the government's put a huge amount of capital and resource into it, but also the private sector has really risen to the challenge. So we're leading the world. The biggest offshore wind farms in the world, the top 5, are off the coast of the UK. You know, they're not off the coast of China or America. They're in Great Britain and Northern Ireland. That's amazing. So that technology, which is very complex, and the history and the knowledge, the intellectual capital that we've built, is highly transferable to Thailand. And you know, if Thailand's going to succeed in the new industrial age and the AI age, it requires an enormous amount of sustainable energy. So that compatibility between our two economies in terms of what we've got and what we can transfer, and the opportunities here are enormous.
Right. And what is the most important aspect of the trade relations between Thailand and the United Kingdom?
So it's a good question. I mean, there are so many that are relevant. I would have thought capital flows and investment, making it really easy for Thais to invest in the UK and for UK businesses to invest here and establish their companies on the ground here. So for me, that's probably the most important technical element. Regulators talking to each other, governments talking to each other, making sure we remove the frictions that often just creep up in a sort of complex financial system.
Right, and how close are we at the moment in terms of achieving the free trade agreement between the two countries?
Yes, well, I love the fact people are talking about free trade. I mean, sadly, in the last few years, free trade's taken a bit of a back seat, and the UK is an absolute open economy. Our post-Brexit vision of Britain is a myriad of trade deals across the world. We've just done one with the CPTPP. We just initiated a new one with countries like Turkey and Korea. So having a trade relationship with Thailand is absolutely an enormously important priority for us. But the way you get there is by dealing with some of the foundation blocks beforehand. So the economic partnership that we have, the enhanced trade partnership dialogue that we're in at the moment, is going to lead to MOUs on different sectors. It could be healthcare, financial services, whatever it may be. And that will provide the basis for the reduction of barriers in areas, maybe medicine approvals, financial investment flows, and so on and so forth, that will then allow us to build on a free trade agreement after that. So the long-term ambition is absolutely to have as close as possible trade relationship with Thailand. Both countries will benefit from it. It just takes a bit of time, and it's good to do it in order, because then you deal with the sort of more complex issues in a way in the foundation part, and then you go on to hopefully do the follow-on after that.
Right, and last week the UK's Foreign Minister David
Yes,
Cameron was
he was here, exactly.
And actually, they also signed this strategic partnership between Thailand and the UK. So from your perspective, how do you think this partnership will move the bilateral relations forward?
I think very importantly, firstly, having David Cameron come here is a really important sign of the significance of Thailand to the UK. And he's a phenomenal, foreign secretary in terms of projecting the power of the UK to the rest of the world as well. So really important point. I've come 2 weeks later in order to emphasise on the investment front the work we can do together. More of my colleagues are going to be coming throughout the year to build exactly on this commitment to have a more enhanced trade partnership. And as I say, you want to get regulatory bodies working with each other. It's very important that we're linked up there. We want to look at barriers to investment, issues such as business mobility when it comes to Thais coming to the UK to invest, issues such as foreign ownership levels in Thailand when it comes to British companies bringing money here. So really, I've been really encouraged when I've talked to the Prime Minister, as I say, who I think has got a phenomenal vision for the economy of this country, the Commerce Minister, the trade envoys I've met, and other government officials, of the real desire to work out, on a regulatory framework. This is a lot of detail, so it's not particularly, romantic or exciting.
Yep.
It's very specific, but that's how business gets done. How can we make sure that the transfer of capital between our two countries, knowledge, people, ideas, and inventions can be as seamless as possible? And sometimes that requires just sitting down and working through the different systems. One very important thing that we've been concentrating on, we've actually put some money into, is how do we digitize trade systems? So to remove the paperwork for selling a Stilton cheese into the supermarkets in Thailand. This requires often a lot of paperwork, which can be an issue when you're trying to sell perishable goods. How do we work with the government of Thailand to reduce those barriers, to make everything digital, make everything seamless? It will certainly benefit the economy here. It will help us because we also need to do the same thing, even though we've made great advances. And of course, it helps businesses. So these are the sorts of talks that I'm focusing on, which I think will make a big difference in the long term.
We just talked about the positive sides and also a long list of barriers here. So which one do you think is the biggest barrier at the moment?
Well, I wouldn't say there's a long list of barriers.
Yeah.
I think that we're doing a huge amount of business here. So I'm not suggesting that. But what I'm saying is that every economy over time has different regulatory pathways, and it's how you bring them together. And where are the priorities in terms of making sure that we invest in the digitization of customs systems. And in the UK as well, we need to push for that too. So from my point of view, the more countries do it with us, then the more our own systems benefit from that. So there's no one great issue. It's the principle of a collective group of details that governments need to work on. And then in the same way that your Prime Minister is chief salesperson for Thailand, well, I slightly think I'm head of sales for the UK. And so going out and talking to Thai companies on the ground here at conferences such as today is really important, because we tell them of the opportunities, which often they may not know about. We show them where they can make great returns. We assist them in making those investments, and that's what my department can do. We can really be on hand to support Thai investment into the UK. Principles such as Selfridges or Fraser Sweets or Thai Bev and all the successes they've had are also important to highlight, because then clearly your peers and colleagues say, well, some of my fellow companies have gone to the UK, they've made great returns, I can follow them. So it's part detail, part marketing.
Right, and the Prime Minister of Thailand has been really active as a salesman, like
Yes,
you
he
said,
has, yes.
and he's been trying to attract more foreign investment into Thailand. So from your perspective, how much potential do you see from there?
Oh, huge. I mean, I think the opportunities for UK companies investing here are phenomenal. And I was enormously encouraged. We had a meeting last night with the British Chambers of Commerce here. These are global powerhouse companies like GSK or Diageo or HSBC. They want to do more in Thailand. We all clearly see this market as having huge potential. It's in a perfect place in terms of Southeast Asia, in terms of where it's located. There are enormous opportunities, as I said, in sustainable energy, investing in the technologies of the future, but also a great culture and history in terms of manufacturing here now. I mean, the car production out of Thailand is phenomenal. So, what can we learn from Thai intellectual capabilities that we can then take back to the UK? So there's a plethora of opportunities that I want to maximise, and I'm very excited about it.
There are tons of opportunities here in Thailand and in the UK, but the Prime Minister of Thailand has been pitching a lot of projects to several governments around the world, and that also includes the land bridge project that Prime Minister Srettha has been talking about a lot whenever he goes overseas and meet with the leaders, the world leaders. So how did Srettha try to pitch this idea to you?
Well, so the first time I met your Prime Minister was a few weeks back at a big property conference in France, and he did a phenomenal job at demonstrating the property opportunities for international investors in Thailand, and infrastructure as well, and we touched on that a bit earlier. We all need more investment in infrastructure, transportation, the grid, the enormous amounts of power we're going to need, and just generally in building our infrastructure for our future economies. It could be in softer areas such as education or whatever. So, I mean, I think that he has been very powerful at demonstrating the desire for Thailand to become an important and growing economy in the region. And I think that in itself is very important. I feel in the last 24 hours, just spending time talking to business leaders, that there is a renewed impetus in terms of focus on economic growth by the government and the business community. And that in itself has enormous concomitant benefits, because it creates the momentum that then attracts international investment. I mean, I was investing and operating in the economy in Thailand back in the mid-90s, so before the financial crisis in 97, 98. So I saw the powerhouse that was Thailand, with the capital city being Bangkok's extraordinary projection of its financial power. And I've seen in the last sort of year or so that momentum start to gather again. So I'm very excited, and the fact that we're sending so many ministers here, the fact that we're concentrating so much on a strong economic dialogue, the fact there are so many Thai and British companies who are investing in each other's countries, I think exemplifies actually the huge potential led by your government, but also businesses are the ones that make the money, and you're seeing a great sense of new renewed entrepreneurialism here as well, which I'm very excited about. Do
you personally see the potential of the land bridge project being successful in the future?
Yes, so you mentioned the land bridge project. I mean, from my point of view, these big infrastructure projects are really interesting in terms of driving innovation. I'm hoping that if such a project goes ahead, some of our UK infrastructure companies are going to have the opportunity to come and get involved. So when it comes to my role being a salesperson, then I would like to sell UK know-how and technology when it comes to supporting countries in these big ambitions. So we'll see what happens in the future, but obviously we'd love to participate.
And one last question, now that we talked about the overall situation in terms of the investment and trade between the two countries, so from your perspective, why should Thai companies invest more in the UK?
Well, that's a great question. It's my favorite question. I mean, there are so many reasons, frankly. The first is we have a very stable and predictable economy, and that's very important. So stability and consistency is core to investing. If you've got lots of volatility, it's very hard to make those long-term decisions, whereas you can make long-term decisions into the UK. And the second is, the people, the brain power. The top universities in the world, I think half of them nearly are from the United Kingdom. And as many people in Thailand know, they've been to those universities, so they've contributed to that extraordinary track record. And if I think to the future, the countries that don't own the IP, that don't create these innovations and technologies, will be really at the mercy of other nations. So we're developing this extraordinary new technology in the UK in terms of AI, in terms of new ways to provide sustainable energy, and that's happening there in Great Britain and Northern Ireland. So for Thai investors, they need to be part of that. That's going to be the future for returns. And I think of some of the new industries that have come up. So advanced manufacturing in our EV industry, in terms of Jaguar Land Rover, Stellantis, Nissan, these great car companies committing to the UK for the long term. So whole new industries are growing up. And then you align that with our sustainable energy plans, and you've really got a phenomenal mix of technology, real advanced manufacturing, and sustainable and affordable energy, which creates for a really vibrant economy. And at the end, just to touch on, I mentioned this earlier, we have a really strong vision for a post-Brexit vision of Britain, which is interlinked to the global trade flows. We sitting at the centre of that. London as the capital of international finance, and the rest of the UK as the capital of idea creation and innovation. So really exciting opportunities, both for investing in Britain as a jumping off point for the rest of the world, but also as a thriving domestic economy with some of the best brains in the world within it.
Thank you
very
so much for today.
My pleasure.
ขอบคุณมากค่ะ
Thank you.